Telemachus goes out by himself. As we said, the assembly is broken up. And he prays to Athena, a compelling prayer at line 295. Dear God, hear me. Yesterday you came to my house, you told me to ship out on the misty sea and learn if Father, gone so long, is ever coming home. Look how my countrymen, the suitors most of all, the pernicious bullies, foil each move I make. Athena shows up as mentor, and she says, Telemachus, at line 305 or so, 303. Telemachus, you'll lack neither courage nor sense from this day on. Not if your father's spirit courses through your veins. Now there was a man, I'd say, in words and action both. Telemachus keeps being reminded of his amazing dad. We're going to see more of this, by the way, when he shows up at to see Nestor and Menelaus. He says, now there was a man, Athena says, I'd say in words and action both. So how can your journey, Odyssey, end in shipwreck or defeat? Only if you were not his stock, Penelope's too. Then I'd fear your hopes might come to grief. Then Athena says it. Few sons are the equals of their fathers. Most fall short, all too few surpass them. We think a lot about fathers and sons when we look at the Iliad and the Odyssey. We think about, for example, that there was that whole thing that said if whoever sleeps with Thetis and she has a son, that son will be greater than the father, which is why Zeus didn't want to sleep with Thetis and instead married her off to Peleus. And of course, Achilles became the greater than the father Peleus. However, remember, Nestor would remind Achilles every once in a while about the great Peleus. Here, Athena is reminding Telemachus, your father is Odysseus, why don't you try and measure up? But you, she says, be brave and adapt from this day on. Odysseus' cunning has hardly given out in you. In other words, you're cunning, you're tricky, figure it out. There's every hope that you will reach your goal. Put them out of your mind, these suitors' schemes and plots. They're madmen, not a shred of sense or decency in the crowd. Nor can they glimpse the death and black doom hovering just at their heads to crush them all in one short day. See, the poem is brilliant in this regards. It sets us up to wish for Odysseus' homecoming, and then we're going to have a whole bunch of books before Odysseus finally does come home, and he's going to jack these suitors something awful, right? In other words, we know it's coming. But you, the journey, the same word again used, that stirs you now is not far off, not with the likes of me, your father's friend and yours, to rig you a swift ship and be your shipmate too. She tells him to pack up and to go home and get packed. He does, and in fact he sees Antinous, and Antinous will say at line 340, hey, come and eat and drink with us, just like the old days. Whatever you want, our people will provide, a ship, picked crew, speed you on your way to holy Pylos, right? And Telemachus will respond by saying, Antinous, how can I dine with you in peace and take my pleasure, you ruffians carousing here? Isn't it quite enough that you, my mother's suitors, have ravaged it all, my very best, these many years, while I was still a boy? In other words, you took advantage of me when I was young. But now, I'm full grown. I can hear the truth from others, absorb it too. Now, yes, that the anger seeds inside of me, I'll stop at nothing to hurl destruction at your heads. Line 350. Wherever I go to Pylos or sit there, sit tight here at home, but the trip I speak of will not end in failure. Go I will as a passenger, nothing more, since I don't seem to command my own crew. That, I say, is the way that suits you best. It'll be interesting at the end of this book that, in fact, Telemachus will be commanding his crew. So we're watching, this is, again, what we mean by buildings Roman, we're watching the young man Telemachus grow up, right? We then have a bit of mocking going on, and at line 368 or so, who knows, one of the suitors say, who knows? Off in that hollow ship of his, he just might drown far from his friends. A drifter like his father. What a bore. He'd double our work for us, splitting up his goods, parceling out his house to his mother and the man who weds the queen. So they scoffed. And they do. They make fun of them, right? And Odysseus will then go away into the rooms where all of the wine is kept in the resources or whatever. There, Euryclea, the servant, is there, and he tells her, I'm going away, pack me up a few things, no one else must know, line 393, and I'm ready to go. And at line 400, we're told that Euryclea, a wail of grief, his fond old nurse burst out in protest, sobbing, why, dear child, what craziness got into your head? Why bent on rambling over the face of the earth, a darling only son? Your father's worlds away, God's own Odysseus, dead in some strange land. And these brutes here, just wait. The moment you're gone, they'll all be scheming against you. Kill you by guile, they will, and carve your birthright up in pieces. No, sit tight here. Guard your own things here. Don't go roving over the barren salt sea. No need to suffer. So, it's fascinating. Think of it. Telemachus is getting advice from two different old people, and both of them are giving him diametrically opposite advice, right? Mentor, who of course is Athena, says, get in a boat and go. Euryclea, who has been with him all his life, says, no. Once you leave, your mom is unprotected. They're going to hunt you down. They'll try and kill you. It's interesting, Telemachus' response at line 410, and it tells you he's getting older. Courage, old woman, thoughtful Telemachus said. There's a God who made his plan, but swear, Telemachus is all of a sudden, he's very much no longer a skeptic as much as he is a man of faith, we might say. He really believes that the gods are in fact behind this. But, swear, you won't say anything to my mother, not till 10 or a dozen days have passed, or she misses me herself and learns I'm gone. She mustn't mar her lovely face with tears. What a nice little line. In other words, don't tell me, Mom. He makes her swear. She does swear, and then at the very end of the book, we will have Athena as mentor speaking to Telemachus at line 443 or so. Telemachus, she says, your comrades in arms are ready at the oars, waiting for your command to launch. So come on with our voyage. Again, Odyssey is the easy way to say it. Now we're wasting time, and Telemachus then will give his orders. Come, my friends, get the rations aboard. Line 450. Onto the boat we go. Telemachus gives his commands. All lay hands to tackle. He's the one giving all of the commands. Good winds set up, and we're told that the ship went plunging all night long through the dawn. And so the book will end then with Telemachus on his boat, sailing away from Ithaca. Didn't say a word to his mother. Right? Didn't say a word to his mother. Off he goes. All right, let's work at level 2 and 3 quickly. At level 2A, well, one message is sometimes it's hard for youth to be taken seriously by adults, right? I mean, that's the case, isn't it? I mean, think about, for example, on your way out of the building, if some 6th grader says to you, hey, sit down, I need to talk to you. You have a tendency as a senior to not take that so seriously. You're like, wait. I'm a senior, you are not, right? Of course, think about how your folks must feel sometimes when you say, I need you to hear what I'm saying, listen to me, you are wrong, I am right. Yeah, sometimes it doesn't work out so well, right? Another major theme, think about this. A youth becomes a man or a woman by overcoming fears, right? Speaking in front of the assembly, for example, or going on a trip is something that Telemachus would have thought he couldn't do. Athena kind of gives him the confidence to do it, right? Finally, notice the other message is, and it's some foreshadowing, no question, the suitors are going to get theirs, and when they do, they're going to get what they deserve. All right, at level 2B, well, our symbolism here, obviously the two eagles on the right are a major symbol that Odysseus is coming back. We're going to have a major fight at the end of this poem. The spear's scepter, that thing that is thrown down on the ground by Telemachus, gives him the right, of course, to speak. Again, as we said, we think about Golding's Lord of Flies and the breaking of the conch. You have the conch, you have the right to speak. Note the irony. Penelope's weaving for 3 years. She's like her husband, very crafty. Antinous says she cannot be believed. And yet, notice the irony. Every one of them want her for their wife, right? At 3A, well, we predicted, right? We were going to be looking at the Iliad. So think about this. Think about sons and mothers, right? Think about sons and mothers. And the way both poems emphasize sons and mothers at the beginning of the poem, right? So for example, in the Iliad, Achilles, immediately after he gets kind of mistreated by Agamemnon, will immediately go to his mother and ask for help. I need you to talk to Zeus. I need you to make that happen. In the Odyssey, when Telemachus is mistreated by the suitors, notice he asks Athena, right? He asks Euryclea for some help, but he doesn't talk to his mother, right? We've mentioned, of course, Lord of the Flies, which, by the way, is a good text, companion text to read for both the Iliad and the Odyssey, a text of violence, and, of course, a text of conflict resolution gone awry, right? Okay, we have similar ideas. How about this one at 3A? What's a text where someone young has to stand up to an adult? I think of Portrait of the Artist. We'll be reading it together, James Joyce's classic, Portrait of the Artist as a young man, where he has to have that famous conversation with the priest, and he has to tell the priest, I'm not going to be a priest. It's a major moment, right? It's a major moment for him. It takes a lot of courage for him to do that. What's a text where adults mock a kid, right? Wanting to be taken seriously, the way these suitors will mock poor Telemachus. Finally, at 3b, well, you knew this was coming. What was a time you had to speak in front of adults and it was really, really freaky or scary? What was a time when adults refused to take you seriously, right? And you were kind of like, well, I'm being humiliated here. I'm wanting to be taken seriously. An interesting question, at what point do you think in your life will adults take you as their colleague? Over the years of Worland High School, I've taught a number of seniors who have gone on to take teaching degrees and then came back here to become teachers in our building. But they always reported that it was sometimes hard for them to be taken seriously by the teachers who taught them. You know what I mean? It's almost as if they never could see them as grown up. What are your thoughts about that? When do you finally feel like you're grown up with your parents and your parents will see you as an equal? Or will that ever happen? Or is it supposed to happen? Well, that's book 2. Book 3, Telemachus is going to be with Nestor. This is going to be a return in many ways to many of the stories of the Iliad. We'll get ready for that. Having read the Iliad, it's so much fun to read book 3 of Odyssey because we get kind of some of those references. And as well, we'll be reminded that if Odysseus has a son named Telemachus who's out looking for his daddy, Nestor had a son in the Iliad, you'll remember, Antilochus. Antilochus was the one, you'll remember, that was actually sent to Achilles to tell him that Patroclus was dead. And Antilochus will in fact die in that famous last great battle at the walls of Troy, not in the Iliad, this is after the Iliad, with Achilles himself, and then Achilles, of course, shot in the ankle by Paris. It will be Antilochus, though, that will die right there at the walls of Troy, fighting alongside of Achilles. That's Nestor's son, and all of a sudden here's Odysseus' boy that's going to show up in book 3. I hope that you'll come back to join us for that one. Thank you.